placing 7-year-old in a facility to forget he exists. I know I sound heartless. I know that on the surface, what I'm about to say will seem monstrous or unthinkable. I've never been able to tell anyone, not even my therapist, because I'm convinced they would judge me harshly or try to talk me out of it. Go ahead, judge me if you like. Maybe I deserve it. Maybe not. But if you do judge me, at least imagine yourself actually living my life. Imagine just for a moment dealing with all the choices and consequences I've faced. Then ask yourself, what would I really do if I were in her shoes? I'm a single mom of 2 boys. One is 12, the other is 7. My husband died 3 years ago in a work-related accident. I won't get into the details, but it's an accident that I suspect was no accident at all. I've seen and heard the official version, but I believe, deep in my bones, that he took his own life that day. He made a specific move right before it happened, one that ensured no one else would be in harm's way. And it's just not the sort of mistake he'd ever have made unintentionally. I fully believe he ended his own life because of our younger son. It might sound awful, but that's how I see it. Before all that, during my pregnancy, the doctors told us that the baby would have Down syndrome. Neither of us was thrilled, but we both said we'd handle it no matter how severe. We were prepared for special needs, for the possibility of an intellectually disabled child who might still have some capacity for interaction or even small joys. That's not what happened. Instead, we found out after birth that he had a rare chromosome deletion that mimics certain facial or physical traits of Down syndrome, but is drastically more serious, like an entire level beyond anything we'd braced for. I'm not going to name the specific syndrome here, but suffice to say, it's so severe that my younger son essentially has no meaningful awareness at all. He's profoundly disabled to the point where there's almost nothing there cognitively, or so it appears. Try to picture a 7-year-old who is, in every practical sense, an infant with minimal reflexes, possibly even less. He doesn't respond to noise, touch, or pain. His eyes stay locked in one position, never tracking movement. He cannot feed by mouth. He's tube-fed. He's on oxygen. He wears diapers and will for life. He never babbles or tries to speak. Honestly, he's never seemed to show any sign of recognizing me or his older brother or even noticing we exist. He might make the odd shallow noise, but it's not crying or cooing or anything you'd interpret as communication. He has no purposeful movement. You can't even say he's developmentally at a 1-month-old level. It's worse than that. He's 24/7 total care. A medical staff's dream or nightmare scenario. Everything must be done for him, minute by minute. Is it painful for me to say it? Yes, but I've come to realize he's not truly alive on the inside. I don't think he's ever known who I am. There's no evidence he even recognizes my voice or the presence of his older brother. It's like he's just there, breathing but not living, unaware, unresponsive, perpetually in a state of limbo. You look into his eyes and see nothing. He never tries to reach for a toy, never fusses for attention or comfort, never demonstrates any preference. He's like a body on autopilot, without a conscious mind. Maybe that's blunt, but that's how it is. If it ended at that, I might still push forward. But he's not just profoundly disabled cognitively. He's also medically fragile. He suffers frequent respiratory crises. He can't pass stool normally, leading to severe fecal impactions. His autonomic nervous system hardly functions. He's been hospitalized many times for infections and pneumonia. We have a visiting nurse 20 hours a week, which helps a bit, but is nowhere near enough. My older son is 12. For the past 7 years, his life has been overshadowed by his younger brother's constant needs. It's appointment after appointment, crisis after crisis. I tried continuing law school, but I dropped out because I could never juggle the load. Someone had to handle all the emergencies. Meanwhile, my older son's entire childhood is shaped by a sibling who is basically a medical puzzle, soaking up 200% of my time. My older boy's father, my husband, is gone. I suspect he left us on purpose. My older son doesn't say so openly, but he knows something's off. He's grown up sidelined, overlooked, even neglected at times. It kills me to admit it, but it's true. My 12-year-old is gone without the normal motherly attention. Or at least it's been significantly reduced. If there's a conflict, like older son has an event but younger son has an urgent medical need, guess who wins? Younger son does. And older son is left alone. One day recently, I heard a commotion from the younger son's room. I rushed in, bracing for another breathing crisis. Instead, I found my older son physically hitting his little brother, tears streaming down his face, shouting, You're why I don't have a mom. You're why I don't have a dad. You ruin everything. I didn't ask for you and I hope you die. My older son was in a raw meltdown, taking out years of bottled-up resentment. And the younger one, no reaction. Didn't flinch or cry or show any sign of noticing. His body was limp. My older boy could have been punching a pillow for all it mattered. The 7-year-old had no sense of pain or fear or anything. I didn't even intervene right away. I stood there, stunned, letting the reality sink in. My older son was so broken by the constant overshadowing that he attacked his disabled sibling physically, and the younger one was so far gone cognitively that he didn't even register it. It was like a grim metaphor. The older boy has lost everything. His father, a normal childhood, the chance to do sports or have friends over without a hospital meltdown overshadowing it. Because all resources revolve around a child who, functionally, isn't there at all. I realized then, we can't keep living like this. People might say, but he's your child. I'd reply, I never truly had a child. This might be the hardest thing I've ever said. I don't love him. How can you love someone who doesn't exist in a real sense? He has no personality, no consciousness that's discernible. My older son has more personality in one pinky than the younger one has in his entire being. Even an imperfect child, like a typical child with Down syndrome, often has something, a spark, a sense of joy or curiosity, or at least some fleeting connection. Not my younger boy. He's physically present but cognitively absent. I call him a potato, or a malignant lump in my darkest thoughts. Horrible, I know, but it's the truth of how I feel. I can't express enough how exhausted I am. Medical crises, diapers for a 7-year-old, tube feeding, repositioning him to avoid bed sores, fighting insurance for coverage, living with the guilt of ignoring my older son's needs, trying therapy after therapy, each touted as a possible breakthrough. None worked. My husband spent countless hours in overtime jobs to pay for experimental treatments. He pinned hopes on them, maybe, or maybe he lost hope entirely. Either way, he's gone. And so I decided. My younger son is going into a residential facility on the 29th of this month. I have the paperwork. I found a place that's properly equipped for profound medical needs kids. We'll have 24/7 care from professionals who are paid wages to do exactly what I've been doing for free, at the expense of my life and sanity. I plan on signing him over and basically washing my hands of the day-to-day burden. Harsh, yes, but I know we'll be happier. At least, me and my older boy. He can focus on having a real childhood without constantly hearing the oxygen monitor beep or the feeding pump alarm ring. We deserve normalcy. My husband is already lost. I refuse to lose my older son too. Enough is enough. A part of me feels a wave of guilt, but an even bigger part feels relief. Like I'm crossing a finish line after a marathon I never wanted to run. The shame is overshadowed by the knowledge that my older child will finally come first. Our home can be a home again. We can do family outings spontaneously, or I can sign him up for sports or clubs without scheduling nightmares. We can breathe. Meanwhile, the younger one, he's not going to know or care that I'm gone. If he does have any hidden awareness, which I doubt, maybe this facility can do more for him. Maybe they have specialized staff who can figure out a new approach. But in my mind, that's unlikely. He's plateaued. He is what he is. Sometimes people ask, why not just choose hospice or something? If he's so medically fragile, let me be clear. I don't have the legal authority to choose that. Oddly enough, about a year ago, in the midst of my own mental health crisis, I was hospitalized for severe depression and CPTSD. My late husband's mother petitioned for and got partial medical proxy rights over him. She can veto end-of-life or hospice decisions. She's refused to let me put him in palliative hospice care, clinging to the idea some miracle therapy might come around. But she's not stopping me from placing him in a residential facility. That's the compromise. She's okay with him receiving care in a specialized institution, but not with me giving up on his medical interventions. Finin, let her keep that hope. Let them keep trying. I won't stand in the way. I'm just removing him from my house. I'm not a monster, am I? Some reading this will think I'm a monster. They might wonder how I can speak so callously about my own child. But to me, the child I wanted never arrived. I delivered a being who is genetically my son, but is not a child in the practical sense. I can't sugarcoat that. If that offends you, well, you might be blessed never to have experienced such a scenario. You might say, All life is precious. Sure, but I'm living in the reality of day-to-day hell. If he had any sign of personality or reciprocal connection, I might have felt differently. Instead, it's been 7 years of zero reciprocity and total caretaker drudgery, leading to heartbreak for my older son, the loss of my husband, and the near destruction of my own mental health. I'm done. He's leaving on the 29th. A van from the facility, plus a specialized nurse, will come pick him up. I'll say a quick goodbye. Then he's gone. I plan on minimal contact. I might call it denial or cruelty, but I don't want monthly visits or check-ins. I want to move on. For my sake, and for my older boys. If that means I'm cold, so be it. Focus on my older son. He is my priority. I'll ensure he knows I'm here for him, that we can start rebuilding a normal life. Perhaps we'll go on a small vacation next year. Just the two of us. Something we could never do before. Therapy for both of us. My older boy needs therapy to cope with the guilt and confusion of lashing out physically. I need therapy to handle the emotional baggage, and to confirm that I'm not simply going insane. Return to my ambitions. I might try re-enrolling in law school or finding another fulfilling career path, now that 24/7 caregiving is lifted. That's the plan, at least. Addressing the rage or criticism, I'm sure many will rage at me. How dare you call him a potato or a malignant lump? Fine, I get that. The truth is, the situation has bred so much resentment in me. A resentment that ultimately forced me to accept that I don't have motherly love for him. I have caretaker exhaustion, frustration, sorrow, guilt, and anger. That's the raw reality. If it disturbs you, I understand. But you're not living my life. Yes, this is real. Some might say, you must be lying. Sorry to disappoint, but children like mine do exist, with severe, rare chromosome deletions. The medical complexities are real. The heartbreak is real. The fiasco with insurance and therapies is real. My mental breakdown last year was real. My father-in-law's attempts to override me legally were real. My older son's meltdown was real. If you want proof, you can doubt me all you want, but that doesn't change that I have to face this every day until the 29th. In the end, I suppose I'm half numb, half relieved. I feel sorry that this is how things turned out. I'm sorry that I couldn't be the saintly mother society wants me to be for a child with special needs. He's beyond that label. There's nothing special about his needs except that they're complete and endless, overshadowing everything else in my family's life. And I can't do it anymore. So yes, I'm placing my profoundly disabled 7-year-old in a residential facility so I can forget he exists. I'm not sorry for that act, not anymore. I'm sorry that fate dealt him, and me, and my older boy, and my late husband, such a cruel hand. But I'm not sorry that I'm choosing to save what remains of my older son's childhood and my own sanity. People can judge me all they want. If they walked a mile in my shoes, losing a husband, forced to watch an older son suffer, caring for a child who has no awareness of you or anything else, they might end up making the same choice. And if they wouldn't, then they're stronger or more selfless than I am, I guess. Meanwhile, I intend to close this chapter and move on with life. That's the reality. I'm done. And now all I can do is hope that I can repair the relationship with my older son, chase my dreams again, and find some measure of peace. Maybe, in some intangible sense, that's the best outcome for everyone, including my younger boy, who won't even notice I'm gone. In response to people calling me a liar, I can say that yes, the specific chromosome deletion is akin to 3' mosaic deletion duplication syndrome. That's unbelievably rare, and I realize I might be doxing myself by sharing it. But if it helps shut down accusations of fabrication, so be it. Because yes, these conditions exist, and they can mimic the superficial look of Down syndrome, but be far more devastating cognitively and medically. My insurance wouldn't cover certain prenatal tests, so we only had the assumption of Down syndrome from ultrasounds. But after birth, we discovered the deeper truth. If you still think I'm spinning tales, I guess nothing I say will convince you. My meltdown, my father-in-law's legal proxy meddling, my older son's heartbreak, my husband's probable suicide, these are the puzzle pieces of my life, for better or worse. I hope none of you ever face a situation like mine. I hope you never have to choose between your own survival and that of another child, and the impossible demands of a medically fragile, profoundly disabled child who has no awareness of you or the world. I can't say I'm proud of my feelings, but they are honest. On the 29th, he'll move to a facility that can care for him, and I will do everything I can to forget. I need to. Because if I keep remembering, I might join my husband in that place beyond, and I can't leave my older boy alone. So, this is it, T. Call me hateful, call me monstrous. I'm just a mother who has no child, no real child. When it comes to that younger boy, he is a living, breathing shell. I used to think that admitting this made me evil. Now I think it just makes me human in a situation no one should ever have to endure. And that's where I stand.